In the ashes of the First World War, Germany was a broken nation, humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, burdened with debt, and crippled by unemployment. Millions of Germans longed for hope. And into that despair rose a man whose words promised glory, but whose actions would plunge the world into the deadliest war in history. His name was Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was born in Austria in 1889. His childhood was troubled, and his dreams of becoming an artist were shattered when he was rejected by art schools in Vienna. But the young Hitler discovered something else in those years: the power of words, propaganda, and hatred. He absorbed radical ideas about nationalism and anti-Semitism, which would later become the foundation of his ideology. During World War I, Hitler served as a soldier in the German army. He was wounded, decorated for bravery, and when Germany surrendered in 1918, he, like many others, felt betrayed. To him, the armistice was not peace, it was humiliation. He became convinced that Germany's defeat was the result of enemies within: Jews, communists, and traitors. In 1919, Hitler joined a small nationalist party, the German Workers' Party. With his fiery speeches and gift for propaganda, he quickly rose to prominence. The party soon renamed itself the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party. Hitler's message was simple but powerful: restore German pride, reject the Versailles Treaty, rebuild the military, and blame outsiders for Germany's suffering. His words ignited the anger of the masses. Crowds gathered by the thousands to hear him speak. In 1923, Hitler and his followers attempted to seize power in what became known as the Beer Hall Putsch. But the coup failed. Hitler was arrested and sent to prison. Many thought his political career was over, but prison became his stage. Behind bars, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle. In it, he laid out his radical vision: the superiority of the so-called Aryan race, hatred for Jews, and the dream of expanding German territory. His book turned him into more than a politician. It made him the prophet of a dangerous ideology. The late 1920s brought crisis to Germany again. The Great Depression devastated the economy. Millions were unemployed, and people lost faith in democracy. The Nazis exploited this despair. They promised jobs, national pride, and a strong leader who would make Germany powerful once more. By 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Soon after, the Reichstag fire and a series of emergency decrees gave him absolute power. The Nazi dictatorship had begun. Opponents were silenced, concentration camps were opened, and propaganda filled every street corner. Children joined Hitler Youth, while adults were taught to worship the Führer as Germany's savior. Once in power, Hitler wasted no time. He rebuilt Germany's military in secret, violating the Treaty of Versailles. He annexed Austria in 1938 without a shot fired. Then came the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. Each bold move was met with weak resistance from Europe's leaders, desperate to avoid another war. But Hitler's ambitions could not be stopped. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. The Second World War had begun. Hitler's armies unleashed a new kind of warfare: blitzkrieg, or lightning war. Tanks, planes, and infantry moved with terrifying speed. Within weeks, Poland was crushed. In 1940, France fell in just 6 weeks. One by one, nations across Europe fell under the Nazi shadow. Hitler seemed unstoppable.
Yet across the English Channel, Britain stood defiant. The Battle of Britain raged in the skies as German bombers tried to destroy the Royal Air Force. But Britain refused to surrender. For the first time, Hitler's expansion met resistance. In 1941, Hitler made a fateful decision: Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. He believed it would be a swift victory. At first, the German army swept across vast territories, but the Soviet Union was no ordinary enemy. As winter set in, German troops found themselves freezing, starving, and outmatched. The war that was supposed to be quick became a brutal, endless nightmare. As the war spread, Hitler's darkest vision became reality. Millions of Jews, along with other minorities, were rounded up and sent to concentration camps. The Holocaust, genocide on an industrial scale, became the most horrifying legacy of Nazi rule. Behind the front lines, entire communities vanished in the fires of hatred. By 1943, the tide was turning. The defeat at Stalingrad shattered the myth of Nazi invincibility. The Allies began pushing back in North Africa, Italy, and then Normandy on D-Day. By 1945, Allied armies closed in on Berlin. Hitler's dream of a 1,000-year Reich was collapsing after just 12. On April 30th, 1945, with Soviet forces storming Berlin, Adolf Hitler took his own life in his underground bunker. Days later, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. Adolf Hitler rose by exploiting fear, anger, and desperation. He promised greatness, but delivered ruin. His ambition claimed over 60 million lives in the deadliest conflict the world has ever known. His story is a warning that in times of crisis, voices of hate can rise and lead nations into darkness. This was the rise and fall of Adolf Hitler and the war that changed the world forever.